Citations and works cited lists. Academic English essays, whether you're writing a critical essay that just uses one source when you talk about a specific image or idea or character in a book, or whether you're doing a research essay, when you use quotes, you need to make a note of where those quotes came from. A system has been developed for this, and it's called MLA style, and it has a few rules for different types of sources. The first rule is when you put a quotation in your essay, in the text of your essay, you make a note of where it came from. And all you need to do is put the author's surname and the page number in brackets. If there's no page number, for example, from a website that doesn't have numbered pages, you can just put the author's name. If there's no author's name and there's no page number, it just comes from an article on a website, you can just put the title of the website in brackets. That part's easy. The more tricky part is making a list of works cited that goes at the end of your essay on a separate page. When you do research, it's really important to list the number of sources that you use. Each different type of source has its own citation, but there's a general pattern. Once you learn it for a few types of sources, it's not so hard. When you end up writing a research essay in year 9, year 10, or year 11, the format for citations doesn't change. MLA style is most commonly used in university, but if you learn it now, you're a step ahead. Here's an example of a quotation used in a research essay on the Great Depression, part of a research project for Of Mice and Men that we read in year 9. During the Great Depression, many people living in cities were evicted from their homes because they could not pay the rent anymore. In one New York neighborhood, there was a rent strike. In the Bronx, 3 large buildings of tenants agreed to withhold their rent and began picketing their buildings to demand 15% reductions in rent, an end to evictions, repairs in apartments, and recognition of the tenants' committee as an official bargaining agent. Nason, you'll see that name. It's the author's surname in brackets. Then the period comes after the bracket. These tenants faced eviction anyway when judges sided with the landlords. There's no page number, so I left it out. If you have missing information, you can leave it out. If you don't have an author's name, you can put the title of the website. Now, one note about how to work quotes into your essays. This quote works smoothly. It's built into a sentence that I wrote. It has an introduction, and it's clear where it came from. So obviously, we're talking about problems that people faced living in cities during the Great Depression. One of those problems was not being able to pay their rent and facing eviction. In other words, they couldn't pay their rent, so their landlords threw them out of their house. In one New York neighborhood, there was a rent strike. That's what this article talked about. It was the Bronx in New York, and 3 large buildings of tenants got together and made an agreement. The agreement is explained in the quote. And you can see I worked the quote into a sentence. It works smoothly. I didn't randomly put a quote in the middle of a paragraph with no introduction and no conclusion to it. You want to make sure your quotes work smoothly with the information that you're giving. Remember, quotes support your ideas. They aren't your own ideas. They are just evidence to provide some solid information that shows you know what you're talking about in your essay. That is the point of doing research. That is the point of a research essay. It's really important. It's a little bit tricky to learn how to do this, but you can. It's not that hard. It just takes some practice. Citations and works cited lists. The source for this sample in the paragraph that I just showed you was from an online journal called the International Socialist Review. The article title was Fighting Evictions During the Great Depression, the Great Rent Strike of 1932 in the Bronx by Mark Nason. It's from issue 81. To put it in MLA style, you have to put the author's name, last name, then the first name, period. The article title goes in quotation marks, and the period goes inside the quotation marks. So quotation mark, article title, period, quotation mark. The journal title is written in this fancy slanty writing called italics. You need to select that in your word processor in order to write that type. All titles of books, titles of newspapers, titles of journals will go in italics like this slanted writing. If there's a series, volume, or an issue number, you put that and then you put the year it was published if you can find that information. You put the page numbers, follow the format. Issue, bracket, year published, bracket, colon, pages, period. But if there's no page number, you don't have to put that. You can just put the period. You put the website publication year if it's different than the year published, because some online journals, their digital versions, have been archived. They've been put online many years after they were put in print. For example, the New York Times has an archive that does just that. So you might need to find the issue number of the paper you're quoting from and the year was published. So if you found a primary source from the 1930s, you would put New York Times, issue 42, 1932, page 10. And then you would say website, publication year. If it was archived in, say, 2012, you would write that. You write that it's from the web to show that you found your article from a website and not from the paper version of this journal. And then you write the date, month, and year that you read it. So, for example, if I read this on April 12th, I put 12th April 2018. Okay, and I wrote all the information underneath there so you can see how I did it. Nason Michael, fighting evictions during the Great Depression, the Great Rent Strike of 1932 in the Bronx, in quotation marks. International Socialist Review, in italics, issue 81, which was printed on the page. That was a live link. I had to click on it to find out when that was published, and it was January 2012. So the website publication year and the article publication year were the same in this case, so I put January 2012 again. Then I wrote web to make sure that it's clear that it's from a website and not the paper version. And then April 12, 2018, the year I accessed it, the date I accessed it. Okay, so if you are missing something, you have no author, no page number, no issue number, etc., leave it out and follow the formula for the type of resource you're using, whether it's a book, a website, etc. For a book, you simply put the author's name, the title of the book, the publisher, the year it was published. That's it. And the pages that you used. That's it. I will give you a resource. You can look this up online as well. You can find some very good resources that will show you how to do this yourself. But most people doing research in our school are using online articles. So I'm going to show you how to do that. A website with no author name, in quotation marks, website article, website title, in italics, website publisher, date, month, and year published, date, month, and year accessed. That's it. America in the 1930s, eyewitness history. The website publisher is the URL, actually, or a short version of the URL. You can put that. That's fine. From year 2000, and I read it on 12th of April 2018. So that's all you need to put for those kinds of sites. For video resources, to cite a film or video found on a website, use the following structure. Last name, first name of the creators, the title of the film or video in quotation marks, the title of the website, role of contributors, and their first name, last name, version, numbers, publisher, publication date, and URL. Okay, that's a lot. Probably you aren't even going to have all of that information, so don't panic. For example, if you use a video about Franklin D. Roosevelt and the New Deal during the Depression from YouTube, one that we looked at in class, we don't know who created it. We don't know where that source actually is. So you just put the title of the video, Roosevelt and the New Deal Part 1, YouTube, September 23rd, 2011, which is published beside it, and you just put the URL. You can put the date you read it. You don't need to put the date you accessed it here. You can just copy and paste the URL and add it to the end. For a film from a database like Netflix or Amazon Prime, for example, if you saw the film Of Mice and Men that was made in 1992 by Gary Sinise and Horton Foote, who wrote the screenplay, you would write this, Sinise, Gary, and Horton Foote. Gary Sinise was the director, Horton Foote was the screenwriter. You can get that information from the credits in the film. And you can also look it up on IMDb or Wikipedia and find that information. It's really easy. Title of the film, in italics, Of Mice and Men, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. That's the studio that released the picture. The year, 1992, and then you write Amazon as the title of the website and just put the URL. It's actually not that hard. And when you get to the end of this slideshow, you'll see that there is a website that will generate your citation for you if you have the information and if they have that source online. Okay, so for a film you don't find online, for example, you've got a DVD kicking around in your house, you would put just the same information, only with no URL. Sinise, Gary, and Horton Foote, Of Mice and Men, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, 1992. That's it. Very easy. Version numbers and publisher. If you don't have the version and numbers, it doesn't matter. You don't need to put it. So you can ignore that information. And for any other advice, there are 2 websites you can check. EasyBib.com. This site even has an option for you to enter the type of source and related information, and it will make your citation for you if they have it online. You don't even have to think about it. I used it to make some of the citations here. If their site can find your resource, you can copy and paste your ready-made citation, which is a really good plan. If you want a more thorough site to check, the Purdue University Online Writing Lab, or OWL, is a great free resource. This site also contains good information about writing essays, grammar practice, research, and all other relating topics. Some are specific for English learners and high school students as well. I recommend checking it out sometime. It's really useful. And also at easybib.com, make sure you use the latest version of MLA. Right now it's version 8, but if you find the most current version, you'll get the most up-to-date information, and that's, of course, always better, right? And that's it. That's all there is to Citations and Works Cited list. If you have any other questions, just ask your teacher. Bye.